You feel that if you're not at the park, it's very uncomfortable on a Saturday afternoon. So it's part and parcel of your Saturday afternoon routine, I think. The first time I started following was because my dad took me here in 1968 to watch Exeter, and I really followed them from pretty well that point onwards. The very first game I saw was this one here. I've got the programme relating to it, which was against Barnsley in 1968. They actually won 2-0. Alan Banks scored both the goals, but to be honest, I can't remember anything hardly about it, apart from it was towards the end of the season. But I would say that the next game after that was probably the one that actually made me support City. They played Sheffield Wednesday in the League Cup. Exeter were a Division 4 team, and Sheffield Wednesday were top, like the Premier League, but Division 1 then. And Exeter won 3-1. It was under the floodlights. And there was about 15,000 supporters here, which was probably the first floodlit game I'd ever seen. And I think the atmosphere was incredible, and I think from there onwards I was pretty well dedicated to Exeter, I think, after that.
Yeah, there's something special about football under the lights, isn't there?
Well, that's right, and it was the first game. I was only about 9 years old, I think, so it was in the days where you really had to get there early and get to the front of the ground. There was no seats. This was the old cowshed. And if you didn't, you'd have a job seeing the match.
So you were in the cowshed at that time?
In the cowshed, yeah. That's where I first started watching them.
Okay. In terms of that game as well, can you remember who got the goals and anything about that?
No, I remember Johnny Core was a winger. He was he scored one of the goals, and I think he was on fire that night, and that's probably why we won. I think Alan Banks scored one as well. But it was just that Sheffield Wednesday were quite a good side. They had 1 or 2 internationals. Springett was in goal. He played for, I think it was either him or his brother was in the England squad. So they had quite, in those days they played the full team out in the League Cup. They didn't have any reserves or anything, so it was a good win to get that result, really. The next round they actually lost 6-3 at Tottenham. Okay. I didn't go to that one, but they still put on a fairly good show.
Yeah, good result against the top division side. Who was your favourite Exeter City player ever, and why would you pick them?
Player ever, that's a difficult one, really. I think, to be honest, everybody likes the strikers, and probably me, I'm the same. So I'd really either pick Fred Binney, Tony Kello or Alan Banks, but I think out of all those three I'd probably say, or even down Rowbottom, but I would say my favourite was probably Tony Kello, because he was an all-action player. He scored goals with his head, his feet, and he was just a really good all-round player, all-round centre forward. It was, he's very good, and obviously lots of memories of him at the park, and he scored over 100 goals, I believe, for City. So
what do you love about Exeter City the most?
I think it's just the whole match day thing, really, the whole experience. I think once you've been supported side for a few games, I mean, it gets built within you, I think, and you feel that if you're not at the park, you're very uncomfortable on a Saturday afternoon. So it's part and parcel of your Saturday afternoon routine, I think. And just love everything about it, really. Coming to the match, pre-match stuff, and the whole match, win, lose or draw, but preferably win. So I always like to be here.
Your first game, or the game that you remember from most, with the Sheffield Wednesday one, that atmosphere under the floodlights, but it's a real sort of like community, family-friendly atmosphere here as well. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, it always has been like that, to be honest. Even when it was like the old cowshed in the old days, it was still quite a friendly club on the whole. Yeah, so that was good.
What's your worst memory from following the club?
The worst memories, I suppose, you'd have to think about when they went down to the conference. It was one of those things that you thought maybe it would never happen. We always flirted with it. But there was another thing I remember when I came with my dad once, and there was a little tea hut in the corner there between the cowshed and the big bank. And we got into the ground just about on time for the kick-off. And they kicked off, and we went in the tea hut to get a cup of tea. And City let a goal in down this end, so we were right there to see it against Brentford. And they let another one in, so they let 2 goals in before we'd even got the cup of tea in our mouth. And they actually lost 7-1. That was the biggest defeat I've seen them have at the park.
That was the best moment you've had as an Exeter City fan?
I'd have to say probably the FA Cup run of 1980-81, where we reached the quarter-final. And I was lucky enough to see all the games. I went to all the home games. Well, I think there was only one actual Saturday home game. The rest were midweek. But I went to all the away games, which was like Maidstone, Millwall, Tottenham, Newcastle, Leicester. I went to all those games. So that's the only year I've ever been to every single FA Cup game, and it happened to be the year that we actually got to the quarterfinals. I couldn't believe it, really. Some of them were quite challenging. We went to Millwall on the supporters bus, and their fans broke the windows of the bus, so we had to come back. This was December, with half the windows missing. It was freezing cold. Yeah. We beat them 1-0, I think it was. Yeah, beat them 1-0 up there.
The Newcastle game, was it? Am I right in thinking we conceded a late equaliser in that one, and then obviously came back here and beat them 4-0?
Well, we were actually losing 1-0. It's one of those games where it's nip and tuck. There was nothing much in it at all, but we were losing 1-0. Just like we were going to go out with a bit of a whimper. There wasn't much in the game at all, and then we scored really late on. Lee Roberts scored where there was only a few minutes left, and that was brought it back to 1-1. In a way, and it was pandemonium, whatever you call it. Yeah, there was about 2,000 or 3,000 City fans at that game. We left here at 5 in the morning to get that game, and got back really late.
What time did you get back?
Well, I wouldn't like to say. I think it was even worse for me because I lived in Barnstable at the time, so I had to go an hour to get to the station from Barnstable to Exeter. And then on the way back, obviously had to drive back from there as well. So it was but it was worth it just to see him get that goal, bring it back here, and we hammered them back here 4-0. Yeah, incredible.
If you could re-sign one former City player, who would it be?
Oh, that's a tricky one, isn't it? You'd probably say at the moment Ollie Watkins. I think, to be honest, I think he would. If he came back now, he'd make a huge difference to us, really. Yeah.
You started off your watching City in the cowshed. You're now over in the Adam Stansfield stand. Just tell us a little bit about the differences between the two and what it's like over in the Adam Stansfield stand now.
There's actually no comparison at all. The old cowshed was. People say it was quite quaint and all that, but it was very old. Things like the toilets were awful, and the whole thing was. If people that have been in there now came back to that, they would wonder what they'd hit them, really, because it was just a bit grim. Really, it had a great atmosphere, especially when it was packed, but there wasn't any niceties at all. Whereas that is absolutely brilliant. What I do like is the television screens and things that you can look at, get the results at half time, and the whole thing is brilliant. That's done huge improvements to the club, I think, really.
What's the best opposition player do you think you've seen at St James's Park?
Well, it would almost certainly be George Best. He was a bit of an icon at the time, but it wasn't just him on the park. You had Bobby Charlton, England International World Cup winner, Nobby Stiles. There was lots of top class players on the field that day, and the big thing was City actually scored first. But it's one of the things I remember about the game, about getting to the game, because there was 18,500 there that day, and I came with my dad and my grandfather and several members of the family managed to get tickets, and we came behind the cowshed. There was no way you could get in there. It was just absolutely solid mass with people. So we actually managed to go around the back of the big bank and squeeze in between a few people, and we actually managed to get in the very corner there between the big bank and the cowshed. But at the time I had a stool to stand on because I wasn't that tall, so I'm not sure how I managed to stood on it the whole time, but somehow I did. But again, it was a fantastic atmosphere and the biggest crowd I've been in here, and I think it's the second biggest ever that we've had here, I believe. But yeah, great day, and the fact that they were European champions at the time, United, Exeter gave them a fairly good game. So lost 3-1, but that was to be expected, I suppose. But yeah, it was great.